One of our little friends over here has brought his own bed. I do not recommend that you start doing that when you come to church during the homily, please. If he falls asleep, fine. Or she. James Weldon Johnson, famous African-American poet, wrote in one of his poems, young man, your arm's too short to box with God. Young man, your arm's too short to box with God. It's almost as if that's what Habakkuk hears in the first reading, when he, like all of us, sometimes asks God, why? Why aren't you intervening? Why aren't you doing more in the face of all the suffering and the violence that my people are going through? Why aren't you intervening in Ukraine or in this nation wrought with gun violence? We, like Habakkuk, sometimes ask a similar question of God. Can't you do more? All the message that Habakkuk gets, vision still has its time. The vision still has its time. Not the most satisfying answer. And yet, it's God's way of saying to us, your arm is too short to box with God. The Lucan Gospel perhaps gives us some insight into, so what do we do? And maybe there is a plea on God's part, spoken through Jesus, his story, that somehow we are the ones who have to act. We are the ones who have to do what we can do to, in the face of violence, in the face of injustice, in the face of evil. None of us can solve any of it, and yet all of us share some responsibility for the vision of Jesus, a vision that St. Francis of Assisi so fully embraced. And Francis would be like the servant in the gospel today, whom Jesus says, you should say, after you've done everything you're supposed to do, just say, I'm just an unprofitable servant, only doing what I was expected to do. Again, not the most satisfying answer to the apostles, who began by asking, can you give us more faith? Francis, at the end of his life, said to his brothers and sisters, I've done what was mine to do. Now may the Lord show you what is yours to do. And that, Francis's final words, or part of his final words, coincide well with the gospel today. Somehow, we are given a mandate, a gospel mandate, to invest ourselves in the world around us and to do what we can to help make the vision that Habakkuk was revealed, to make that vision more and more real. Francis went through many different changes in his life. He didn't start out a saint. No saint does. And yet, there was something going on in his life that deeply inspired him to follow in the footsteps of Jesus. And we who are the members of St. Francis Seraph Church are equally challenged to try to follow in the footsteps of Francis, which is basically, we're trying to follow in the footsteps of Jesus, to listen to the gospel, When Francis gave the rule to his brothers, he said the rule in life of the Friars Minor is to observe the gospel. It's the gospel. And that's what grabbed Francis's heart when he heard the gospel, when he heard the good news and the challenge of it. This is what I want. This is what I desire with all my heart. I too want this. The St. Francis that we honor and hopefully try to emulate to some degree. First of all, in my own mind, it begins with brotherhood and sisterhood. Francis saw everyone as brother and sister. And he extended that sense of brotherhood and sisterhood to everything in creation. That's a wonderful vision of his that we need to also aspire to. That's why on the Feast of St. Francis, the blessing of animals is those creatures of ours, some of whom are more family members than family members. You know what I mean? Well, yeah. But they're all part of God's creatures, and Francis embraced it all. And that's a piece of Franciscan spirituality that I think all of us want to try to understand and embrace as well. Another aspect of Francis that is attractive to me is his absolute desire to be among and serve the outcasts, the poor, those who live outside, those who were marginalized, those who were put aside by society. Francis made every effort to align himself with those who didn't line up straight, with those who didn't seem to fit in to the established society. That's where Francis's heart was. And hopefully we ourselves are growing in that kind of love and concern and compassion for those who are outside of the standard. Heck, there wouldn't be a St. Francis congregation if we didn't. I mean, look at us, you know. We don't all measure up to all the things that we're supposed to. And yet, these are the people, we are the people that Francis embraces and welcomed and wanted to be part of his life. He lived in simplicity. He was so absolutely poor, beyond what I can ever envision for myself as a Franciscan. But he lived with such simplicity and abandon, detachment from things of the world. And partly, his detachment from everything gave him a sense of ownership of it all, that he was part of it all, because he wasn't trying to keep any of it for himself. It's a beautiful spirituality that Francis shares with all of us. We gather today to celebrate Francis of Assisi, to celebrate this patron saint of our church, with the hope of not just honoring a saint, but trying to take from him, from the example of his life, inspiration for how we want to continue living our lives. Here at St. Francis Seraph Church, as we grow as a congregation, we don't want to just grow in numbers. We want to grow in faith. We want to grow in this Franciscan spirituality to the extent that each of us is trying to do. So as we celebrate the feast day today, in the midst of this blessing of the pets after Mass, electing people to the parish council, we've got a lot going on here today. All good stuff, all good stuff. And let's continue as brothers and sisters in this Franciscan way of trying to live in justice, and live in peace, to live in consort with all God's creatures, with a deep appreciation for each and every one who darkens the doors of this church, who are around the church, who are in your field of life. They're all brothers and sisters, and God loves them all. And we are challenged to try to do the same. So happy feast day to all of you, 2 days early, but probably all won't be here on October 4th. So let's celebrate today the heritage that we have as a church with his name, more importantly, as a congregation that really does want to embrace this Franciscan vision. The vision has its time, and it will come. Habakkuk is told, and it will come for us, little by little, step by step, as we grow in faith.